welcome to Saturday Night Live. Yes, yes. And we're glad you're here. Saturday night is about recovery. It's to help you recover in any area of your life. It's not just about drugs. It's not just about alcohol. It's not just about sex addiction or gambling. It can be anger. It could be food. It could be all kinds of things. Pornography. You know, if I didn't name yours, feel good about that. Okay. so do what? Somebody said something. Tobacco use. Because the fact of it is, all those things we're talking about is enslavement to something. And here at Saturday night, we want you to be free. Free to be what God wants you to be. See, what we do is we put limits on what God wants us to have. And we tell God what we can't do. Does that make sense? But we know better, but we don't do better. Right? Now you say, oh man, well how am I can't seem to get it together. But the fact of it is, you're here, you are working the process. You're going to have to turn that off, okay? Where you're working the process, you're in the as Zach was talking about the process, it's a challenge. And the reality is, and remember this word reality because we're going to come back to it here in a second. The reality is that we know more than we're able to do a lot of the times. Do you know what I'm talking about? Shall I say that again? We know more what we should do than we're able to do. And don't get frustrated. Don't get angry. Don't get upset at yourself. Because, see, first you got to know before you do. Does that make sense? Yep. First you got to know before you're able to do. First you have to be aware. Until you recognize that I have this problem and I'm powerless over it and it's whipping my butt, then I'm able, when I accept it, then I'm able to do something about it. Does that make sense? But until you're at that place, you're not able to do anything. And I have all kinds of things I want to share, but here in step 3, it's talking about making a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God. And that's a big step. That's a big deal. Now, a lot of us have a problem with that because we don't want to turn our will and our life over to the care of God, but we'll turn it over to drugs, we'll turn it over to anger, we'll turn it over to pornography, we'll turn it over to alcohol, we'll turn it over to gambling, we'll turn it over, all of those stuff, right? Am I telling the truth? Hello? Yeah. Are you awake out there? Yeah. Okay? Yep. But you know what? I got a question to you. I got a question for you. There you go. How did that work out for you? Not very well. I got one shake and I got one said not very well. Yeah, you're here. So first we come to that place, and I'm glad you're here. YouTube, Facebook, hopefully we're coming out there, and I hope that you're hearing this, not in a way of condemning you, because all I want to do is I want to add value to you. You're important to me. You're important to God. You're important to us, and I want to help you. My entire life has been about trying to help people do better. I want to do better so that I can take that information and pass it on. Does that make sense? All right? Now, I'm not sure if I'm doing better, but hopefully you're doing better. That was supposed to be a little funny, but it didn't work out so well, did it? So anyway, so what we need to do, we need to make that decision, that choice. You know, one of my favorite sayings, make healthy choices, right? And we need to make healthy choices. Maybe you can't make an absolutely perfectly the healthiest choice, but maybe you can make a little healthier than the last time. And if you do that, you're making progress. And everybody needs to make some progress. And I want you to make some progress. All right, some things I want to talk about tonight is we've been talking about, listen to this, you know this word. We've been talking about shame. Anybody here know any? You don't have any shame, but you know somebody that has shame, right? You know somebody. And when you look in the mirror, do you recognize that somebody? Just a question. Just a question. And
It's the most handsome devil I ever saw.
yeah. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. And the question is, you know, when we look at that handsome, good-looking fella, can we love that person, or do we hate that person? Yeah.
Maybe there's something about this person that we haven't even came to a realization that we need to understand that it's not ourselves because we're waging war. It's spiritual.
You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And what I want to talk about real quickly in the next few minutes, and then we're going to show a video, because we've been talking about shame, okay? We've been talking about shame and that how shame destroys us. Brene Brown talks about that shame is corrosive. It's destructive, okay? And that we get loaded up on shame, and a lot of our world economy runs on shame. Do you know what I'm talking about? Hello?
If you get loaded up on shame, you got to get loaded up on booze.
Well, you got to find some way to deal with it, right? And booze is one way of numbing out.
Yeah,
And the question is, but does it take away the shame, or does it increase the shame? Yes.
Makes you feel better. Makes you think you feel better. And
Make-
you realize you don't feel any better.
Yeah.
You're like, crap.
And
I gotta go get something else.
yes, and then when you come down or sober up a little bit, then some of reality starts coming in. And so what I want to talk about here, just for a couple of minutes, I want to talk about emotional suffering. How's that sound? All right? And I believe this, that all emotional suffering is a denial of reality.
What? You mean I need to wake up and smell the coffee?
Yeah, well, what do you think, Josh?
That's what it sounds like.
Okay, let me read that again. All right, it says, I believe this. Okay, this is my statement. All right. So far, I haven't found that in a quote. I found things similar to this, and I'm not trying to steal it from anybody, but this is where I'm at here. And we've talked about this throughout in the last several years. But all emotional suffering is a denial of reality. In other words, I don't want it to be the way that it is, so I torture myself, or I try to opt out, or numb out, or disappear. And the fact of it is, if all we know are unhealthy tools, then those are the tools that we use. And hopefully, I'm able to give you some healthier tools, right? And that's what this video is going to be here in a little bit. It's going to be about gratitude. And gratitude is a powerful tool, because that's opening up our heart so that God's love can be in us. But oftentimes, we deny the good things in our life, and we focus on the bad things in our life. Isn't that the truth? Shall I say that again?
Absolutely. Yeah, that actually sounds pretty good. You said that one.
Okay. For most of us, if not all of us, we focus on the bad things. It's easy to remember the bad stuff, right? All right? Because we practice and develop those neural pathways. They're a streaming highway in our head. Okay? And, do what? It's a habit. But it's a neural pathway, and so your thoughts go easily down thinking about all the bad stuff. Okay?
Is that why they say it's all in my head?
Because it is. Because it is. And so but then we need to turn our focus to gratitude, and gratitude has so many healthy side effects, from lowering your blood pressure to releasing chemicals in your system that's healthy, and you're doing less of putting neurotoxins in your system that destroys you, like cortisol and other hormones. And so what we need to do is we need to practice the gratitude, practice what you want instead of what you don't want, and stop practicing the self-hatred or all the bad stuff or grudges. Okay?
Start pampering yourself spiritually.
Nurture yourself. I would say nurture. Okay?
You're being a yourself.
Well, maybe, I don't know that if that's your thing, Josh, that's all right with.
Not my thing, I promise.
Oh, okay. All right, so I want to give you a quote from Spinoza, and that is this, and we've read this probably a year or so ago, and this is his quote. He says, emotion, which is suffering, ceases to be suffering as soon as we form a clear and precise picture of it. Is that too much? Too much?
Say it again.
I will. And this is his statement, his quote. It's quoting Spinoza. And he says, emotion, which is suffering, ceases to be suffering as soon as we form a clear and precise picture of it. In other words, if we're living in the land of denial, we're turning the lights off, but we're still getting the crap beat out of us. And we're saying, well, I can't see it, so it must not be real. Really? How'd that work out for you? Right? And so Viktor Frankl said that his statement of an evidence of what Spinoza was saying was that an emotion, which is passion, he called it a passion, is a confusing idea. That emotion is a confusing idea, or passion. And I looked up passion, and it says a strong and barely controllable emotion. Strong and barely controllable emotion. Okay? And we let our emotions pick us up and carry us away, right? Now, I know nobody in this room or on the videos have ever let your emotions get you into trouble. Right. Yeah. And so what we have to do is we have to learn, and we spent like 6 months talking about how to master your emotions. Do you happen to remember any of that? And so, but this emotion, I looked up emotion, and it was this. It says a mental state that rises spontaneously. Hear that? Spontaneously, a mental emotion that rises spontaneously rather than through conscious effort. In other words, it just reaches up and grabs you. Have you ever had the? No, I'm not. You know somebody that maybe the emotion reached up and grabbed. Oh, don't point it, Eric. Okay. And so I was just kidding about that.
So
She didn't point it.
there's a boogeyman living inside.
Yeah. Again, remember what I said, that all emotional suffering is denial of reality. If we can accept reality the way that it is, see this little sign right here? If we can accept reality the way it is, not mean we're going to like it. I didn't say you had to like it. But if you don't accept it, then you can't deal with it. Okay? It's like putting on a blindfold and running through the forest. Because if I can't see the tree, I'm not going to hit it. Really? Is that going to be the outcome? Does that make sense?
Yourself in the face with
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Fall in a hole, hit in the face, you know, run off a bluff or cliff. And so we have to face, we don't have to do anything. But the question, is it in your best interest to face reality? The answer to that is, I'll give you the answer. Yes. Is it easy? No. Is it fun? No. But is it healthy? Yes, Mike.
Eat vegetables. You don't want to, but they're good for you.
I couldn't understand you, Mike. His name is God. And if we can embrace the truth, which is reality, which is the truth of God, which is the love of God, which is the true character of God, not the distorted character of God that sometimes maybe people have told us about him, or what we fashioned after our own thinking because of maybe situations that occurred in our life. We'll go into that some other time. But if we'll accept reality, we'll get better. Because if we accept that, then at least we have a chance to do something about it. And then if we'll lean into it, if we'll just lean that direction, we'll get better. I'm gonna read. I found some comments from a person about this quote, and I changed them a little bit, cleaned it up a little bit from my perspective. I don't think I changed his quote. I think I made them better. Of course, I would think that, right? And so, anyway, it says that we suffer when we are controlled by our emotional response to things. We suffer when we're being controlled by our emotional response to things. One of the harshest emotional responses is fear. You know anybody that can imagine all kinds of fears? Some people call it being paranoid.
But then they try to say that when I'm paranoid, or feel paranoid, that I must be high on drugs. It's all in my head. And I'm just going crazy. What do you think about that one, Doug? What's your philosophy on that?
And your question to me is what? Because you had several things in there. Narrow it down.
What's your philosophy on people saying that I'm high on drugs? Because it means I'm high on meth when I'm paranoid.
Well, if you're paranoid, see, one thing that particularly that meth does, it affects you mentally, right? And even if you haven't used it for a while, because it crystallizes in your lungs and in your body, it breaks loose and it affects you. All right, that's the chemical issue. Now we're going to set that aside for a second. Probably the most troubling part is the mental emotional issue, because that paranoia is more of a mental, catch the word, disorder. Okay, what does that mean? What does disorder mean? Disorder means it's not an orderly something. And we're talking about thought pattern. Does that make sense? Thought pattern. Now, a lot of medication is prescribed nowadays for disorders. You'll hear about disorders. I'm not against medication, but the trouble is medications won't correct disorders.
It'll help them with it?
It can help them, but it won't correct them. Because, see, it's not a disease. It's a thought pattern issue. And the medication or chemicals will affect you neurologically. It will numb you down, maybe calm you down, and maybe you need some of that. But the fact of it is, it won't fix it. You know people that have taken drugs, and then they have to give them more drugs to help them to stay in the same place that they are, because they're not changing their thoughts. Okay? Scripture says, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We waded off into weeds here, but you asked a question. And and going directly to your question here is, sometimes we get caught in that disordered thought pattern because, see, that gives us a sense, because it releases adrenaline in our system. We feel more powerful. We get addicted to it. And and then our amygdala gets on high alert, okay? And that's our fight or flight or faint aspect of our brain. And I'm sorry if that's too much neuroscience, but you asked the question.
No, I was just wondering what you thought about people assuming that I must be high on meth if I say I'm paranoid.
And
You know what I mean?
I can't, you're asking me about them. I can't talk about them, okay? Where
Where did people get that from, though? You must be high on meth.
Well, because it's an easy leap, okay? Because do I?
What's the origin of people thinking you're high on meth if you say you're paranoid?
Because people on meth are paranoid, but because you can be paranoid and because you haven't slept for 2 days. But one of the things that now it can be the drugs that make you paranoid. It can be the lack of sleep that makes you paranoid, or it can be that you haven't eaten and it can affect you in your mind. And see, our brain, going back to neuroscience again, our brain was designed by God to try to create order. And when we have all this chaos in our mind, and it's reaching into regions, areas, or compartments of your brain trying to create some order. And so it's trying to create, and it's reaching into places that oftentimes is distorted. Okay? It's making big leaps. And that's why some of that takes place. Now, some of this is my personal opinion. Okay? But,
Opinion, though, I like it.
okay. And so the thing of it is, they don't know, but they have an idea. And the thing of it is, if we oftentimes associate all kinds of things with something that we know. All right? I see something, so I figure everything's just like that. That's just the way we are.
That's just the way it is.
That's the way you. That is some of the flaws of us being a human. We're human. Okay? Zach had his hand up. want to say this, and they believe that they are, so therefore, they acquire the behaviors
Yes.
of
And if
the
you,
label.
if you think you've got something, and you think you can't help those behaviors, and you let go, and you start seeing more and more of that behavior, because you were told you had it. And telling somebody they have something, you can tell somebody they're sick, and eventually they'll get sick, whether they're sick or not. And so, we have to, we have to, we have to start, we have to start wanting a quick fix. And we have to start caring about ourselves enough to get better. You know, and this just goes into a spider web right here, but we can't just go to a doctor and get some medication and put a Band-Aid on it. Okay, no matter what they say. If you have a doctor telling you that you can't better your situation, maybe they believe that, but I'm sorry, they're wrong. If you put the effort in, you will always change the situation. I don't care what you're diagnosed with. You may not get off medication, but I can't tell you that you can't, because I was told that I would never be off medication. I was told if I got off medication, I would kill myself. I'd be suicidal. Because you've heard my story. I spent a lot of my life suicidal. Okay? I was on 4 antidepressants. You know, and when I became willing to remove some people in my life that were harming me and making me feel bad about myself, my stress came down. When my stress came down, my symptoms went away. When my symptoms went away, they couldn't medicate me. I was overly medicated. I even passed out at the wheel of my vehicle twice because I was overly medicated. I mean, these things affect us.
When you eliminated some of the issues, that
Yes.
means you stopped denying reality and you came to the awareness that you need to deal with some reality. And when you did that, that affected you in your life, mentally, emotionally, and physically.
And when you were talking about acceptance, and I know I talked about it a little bit, you kind of went into a different vein with it, but when you talk about acceptance, acceptance is your exit door. If you feel stuck or trapped, you know, like for a long time, I was under a lot of shame because I've been sexually abused, so I felt like I was a very damaged, broken, dirty person. Okay, so these things happened to me, but I was tainted. Okay, I was damaged goods. All right, I was dirty. So, and when you believe that way about yourself for a very long time, you know, I was stuck in that hell, okay, in that repeated cycle. All right, I only chose certain people in my life because that's all I could get. I mean, this thing just affects your whole life.
Yes.
These things, this trauma that happens to us, influences our decisions and pushes us around.
Yes.
So, and it's like I got up every morning and put this coat of shame on, is how I describe it, because it's like I didn't leave the house without that thing on me. And I was looking down, I didn't look people in the eye. I wasn't worth anything. But, you know, we have to work on that stuff. And we can always get better. You know, but acceptance is your exit door. If you're feeling stuck, and if you're feeling like, if your thoughts are like, it'll never be any better, I'll never do anything different, I can never quit using, I can never quit drinking, I can never quit messing up marriages, I can never quit letting bad women or men in my life, I can never get sober. I mean, whatever your never is, and you feel stuck in that, your exit door is acceptance. That this is where you are right now, but you don't got to stay there. And you really can't move forward until you accept where you are, because you can't know where you're going until you know where you're at.
Absolutely.
Where's my target? Where do I want to go if I don't even know where I'm at? And so it's scary to accept where you are, because we just think, oh, we're gonna pile on the bad negative, you know? And it feels that way, but the truth is, you feel that way anyway. It ain't gonna cave in on you. You walk around carrying that all every day, all day. That's what I did. I carried that all the time. But the minute that I quit running from it and accepted it, okay, this is where I'm at, this is my life's at, this is how I am, this is what I do, then I wasn't running anymore. Okay, where do I want to go? What do I want in my life?
Yes, what do you want?
I know where I'm starting from.
Yes, what do you want?
You know, I need to decide if I stay here
Yes.
or if I go someplace else.
Right.
And I ain't staying here.
Good.
Because you don't want to stay there.
Right.
That's why you're running. So it's really kind of a false belief that you're going to accept all this stuff and then go backwards or just not do anything.
sabotage yourself by quitting.
Yeah, you gotta give up.
I'm gonna stop, and we're gonna, because I wanna shift gears, because we've been talking about the problem, and now I want to talk a little bit about the tool that can help you deal with the problem, and that is gratefulness, gratitude, all right? And I showed the video, last couple of weeks about the dog that had been abused and then loved, and the love was painful. Remember that video? The love was painful. I'm not going to show that tonight, but the dog wanted the love, but he didn't want the love. Does that sound like anybody you know? And even when he allowed him to himself to be petted, herself, I'm not sure, the dog, and even in the midst of being petted, it still acted like it wanted to stop. Okay, so right now we're going to show a little video about gratitude. This is an experiment, some research experiment that was done, and it's on gratitude. It's just one little bitty slice. It's only about 7 minutes. I know I've gone way too long here, but it wasn't all my fault. But I want to hit this right here, and I like Dr. Fred Lipscomb. He says forgiveness requires gratitude, and this isn't his video. We'll be talking more about him later, but forgiveness requires gratitude, because gratitude opens up your heart. It empowers you, allows God to come in and do things in you. Until we open up a crack, okay, we can't get any sunlight in this hardened up heart that we. Anybody here have ever armored up? You walked around with armor to protect yourself? You can't touch me, you can't hurt me, you can't see me, right? You know somebody that way. Nobody in here. And so this little experiment is about gratitude, and you're not going to be able to, probably you're not going to see it on Facebook or YouTube, but we'll link to it so you can see it. And it's about how to connect. And the idea here is this gratitude experiment is that they found that you can be happier. All right? And they give some different stats that doing this little exercise, it increased everybody's happiness at least 2%. Some of them a lot more. And it depends on how involved they were in the experiment. Does that make sense? So we'll let them talk now, and we'll be quiet, and then we'll go from there. We might give you a chance to share any big ideas after we're done. Lights, camera, here we go.
What? Wait. I was going to be so embarrassed.
What makes you happy? Having fun? Hanging out with friends? Delicious food? Making money? Well, consider this. Psychologists have scientifically proven that one of the greatest contributing factors to overall happiness in your life is how much gratitude you show. Yeah? Think about that. Go ahead and marinate on it for a second. You can thank me later if you want. It'll make you feel better according to this study. You go ahead and click on it and read it if you want. Or you can keep watching, because we read it and we thought it might be fun to test out for ourselves. We gathered a selection of volunteers to act as our subjects. First, we gave them a test. They didn't know what we were looking for, but it gave us a pretty good idea of their current level of happiness. We asked them to close their eyes and think of somebody who was really influential in their life, somebody who did something really amazing or important for them. We had them write down as much as they could about why this person was so important. Now, a lot of them thought at this point the experiment was over, until we really put them on the spot and tried to get them to call that person and read what they wrote about them. Thank you, Jessica. We're going to have you call your mother. So who was that right person for you?
Person is my sister, Erica.
We're going to give Erica a call.
Okay.
Who'd you end up picking?
A friend of mine, Greg Ames.
Her name is Dora.
A college accounting instructor.
Really? Is this somebody you're still in touch with today?
No, I'm assuming that he's passed on.
That's a
To the
shame.
great beyond.
for it?
Yes.
What would you say if we called up Dora?
Oh, well, we can try, but she lives in Britain.
In Britain?
I don't know a number by heart. This is awful.
That's fine. I don't know my mom's number by heart.
If it's true that those who are gone are looking down on us, maybe you realize that it's correct.
Hey, sweetheart.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You got a second? Where you at, in the hotel?
I am. I'm in the hotel. You scared me. Are you asking if I got a
No.
second something wrong?
No, I'm on like this little TV show, and they told me to talk about the person that influenced me the most, and I picked you, and they're making me call you. They're making me call you.
Oh, wonderful.
Hi, you've reached Craig. I'm not here right now.
At the tone, please record your message.
Oh, come on.
Hello?
Hi,
Hi.
Erica. It's me.
All right, so I gotta read you this paragraph. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead,
Alright.
sweetheart.
All right, the person that influenced me the most would be my mother, Marlo Dawson. She is a single mother of 2. She is a very hard worker and dedicated to her family.
Hey, Craig. This is Loie. This is going to be a funny little voicemail, so I hope you enjoy it. I'm so sorry for calling you at 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to read this to you, okay? And you can't say anything, or I don't know. You can respond, but I probably will just keep going. Okay?
Is everything okay?
Yes, but I have to read this out loud to you.
The person who has had the biggest impact on my life, outside of Jesus Christ, who was responsible for my existence, was my college accounting instructor. He had a joy and enthusiasm for his job like no other teacher I have ever known.
I love her to death, and she keeps me going with positive talk. She is a woman that knows what she wants and won't give up until it is achieved.
Oh, so good. I don't know what, I'm about to cry because it's so beautiful. I have to say that it's wonderful.
I first met Craig on an independent feature film set in Whitefish, Montana. I recently have been sending Craig a lot of positive thoughts as he suffered a series of health problems. Despite his medical problems, he's continued to work and take pleasure in the small things in life, like sitting quietly with his wife Janine on the porch. Erica is my older sister and my best friend. Sometimes it even feels like we are twins. She's my #1 fan and my #1 supporter. She makes me happy because despite all my mistakes and my decisions, she still loves me no matter what. Your friendship is everything. And you are one of the most important person in my life. Even when she has a kid and many children, I will love her more than her kids. Okay, maybe not. I will never forget when she flew 3,000 miles at the drop of a phone call to save me from a breakup.
I'm being blessed to have this time like you. I love you.
Bye.
Why did you do this?
I don't know because they made me do it. Thank you for picking up. Bye, sweetie. And then they're like, here, you're gonna write this letter. And then I wrote like this whole long ass letter, which I like don't write. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, guess what? Now we're gonna call her and you're gonna read her this letter. And I was like, what the?